Hi, it's Megan. So I said for 2016 I was going to do only limited editions with a few exceptions, and one of those exceptions was the Tom Ford eyeshadow quads that were coming out in January, and I don't know why that's considered an exception, but it is. So this video is for Disco Dust. So it comes in the Tom Ford package. And I have already done a review for Honeymoon, and this was the other neutral, but it's a different formula. So Honeymoon is the wet dry formula like Nude Dip, and Disco Dust is just the regular eyeshadow formula. And so here it is. And I've got outdoor swatches and outdoor photos just because I always think they're more accurate than the indoor stuff. So obviously the mirror that you always get with Tom Ford, and the packaging, which I can never remember not to put my fingerprints on, so mine are always covered with fingerprints. But if you can be smart like I'm not and hold it from the side, you do better. There were 5 new quads that were just introduced in January, with 4 or 5 retiring. So this is it again, and they're, yes, $80, and they're 0.35 ounces. So I'm gonna hold it up next to Honeymoon. Oh, and I forgot, it comes in the little pouch that they always come in. This time of day is not the best lighting wise, but I decided to shoot the video anyway. So this is Honeymoon, and this is Disco Dust without its brushes. They're both warmer toned, but Honeymoon is a lot more warm toned, and it also is more metallic. I would say less glittery, because Disco Dust has tiny micro glitters. So as much as it looks like a super conservative palette, it has that little kick to it, that little edge, which keeps it, I don't know, a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. I am going to be one of the few people who says this. I can promise you, I prefer Disco Dust to Honeymoon. And Honeymoon is more of, I don't know, a glamorous palette, more unusual. But to me, this one is actually a lot more workable and wearable for what I like. And I also think that since it's not quite as warm toned, it's going to work with a lot more shades, colorings. People who want, you know, a muted, more muted look. Although Honeymoon, you can get a muted look, don't get me wrong. And they're both gorgeous. I just want to say that first of all. They're both absolutely gorgeous. So what do I think? 4 shades. This is the first one, and they don't have names. This one's not going to show very well. It's one of those, as in the Tom Ford quads, which has that glitter. And so this one's going to be one that's going to be a lot better from the outdoor picture than anything I can do indoor, because it's really when the sunlight hits it that you see that kind of like a pigment sort of thing in a sheerish sort of a base. Super shimmery shade with little bits of glitter. And what I liked about this one, this is of the shades in the palette, this is one of the cooler ones. I said silver glitter, but it's also got kind of a taupey thing to it, taupiness going on. So I'm a huge fan of these super shimmery types of shades, because I like to put them right under my eye like this, you can see, and right here. And then I also like to put it in the inner corner of my eye. If you put too much, you look really silly, but if you just put a little bit, and with the Tom Fords, I find I'm able to get that subtlety most of the time, then it totally opens up my eyes. I actually like lining my eyes with these types of shades too. What's really great about this one is because it does have that kind of taupishness thing going on, it's not as harsh or as bright. Silvers can be kind of in your face, bright, shimmery, and this one's a little more subtle. So I really like that, and I guess that's where the Disco Dust comes in. In fact, all of these, this one has visible bits of glitter. All of these shades have tiny micro glitter, and it's really hard, it's so small, to identify the colors. But I felt in all the other 3 shades, 3, I think I just held up 4. In all the other 3 shades, I was sitting there trying very minutely to figure out what those different micro glitters were. They're that small. And I was doing it outside, of course, in the sunlight. So the next one is a lighter shade, which is going to be close to my skin tone. And it's kind of like a satin matte base with tiny, tiny micro bits of glitter in it and a slight sheen to it. And so what I said about this one, I said a copper fawn. So there's that really great base color that is in tons of palettes. And this one's got, again, a little twist, a little kink that makes it more interesting than most of them. So instead of just being like that fawn brown matte thing, it's a copper fawn with a slight sheen to it. And then I said it had gold, green, copper, and pink tiny bits of micro glitter. But I do want to point out they're so small that I think that's what I saw. I'm doing this review before I've actually been able to find any other reviews online for this palette. So it's always reassuring sometimes when you can read a review that someone else has done and say, oh yeah, I saw that too. In this case, no. This is what I saw, and I have no clue if anyone else saw anything similar. The next one, I called this a warm copper peach, and these are so subtle, especially with my slightly warm skin tone, that, oh, that actually shows. You can see how pretty these are next to each other. It's getting warmer, and I thought that basically they were getting slightly less shimmery until the brown shade, but all of them have the micro glitter in it. So what I've done is I've taken the lighter one and put it in the inner corner, and I've taken this darker one, put it in the outer corner with a brush, and then I also brushed some of the lighter one into the under eye area. So I said warm peach copper. This has a slight metallic sheen, multicolor with green, pink, copper, and maybe blue or silver. I don't know. And the last one, this I will also say with the Honeymoon, I love the darker brown shades in both of these. They are incredibly complex. They were harder for me than the other shades to identify color-wise. And even as I'm identifying the different colors, what bumps you up in certain brands over others is, I think, creativity and complexity of the colors and shades that they're able to put in a palette so that it's just not the same old brown again. But also, then it's got to work on your eyes. And I think this palette is beautiful on. So this is the darker brown. And I'm going to try to put that shimmery one so you can have them all in a row. I don't know if you can see that shimmery one right here. I think it's too sheer. But there's the darker brown. That's the only one I'm going to swatch twice, just because it is so deep and rich, and I want you to get the full impact of it. This one, I don't want to say it doesn't apply quite as well, just because it is so dark. If you want to get that full depth of it, it does do better swatch twice. But when I apply it on, it's super dark, and then it blends out beautifully. So I've got it in the crease, and then I've also got it lining just the outer corner of my eye, and then lining the upper part of my eye. And I really love this brown. It's, what did I say about it? I said it's a black and brown, hints of, so when you're talking about those little micro shimmers, pink, blue, and silver multi-glitter, maybe copper, but the shimmer in this one is less obvious than in the others, and it has less sheen to it. It's more of a matte finish with little tiny bits of glitter, where the other ones are more like satiny mattes or matty satins in that kind of gray zone. But this one, I just think is so great, and it's cooler than the other two. And so if you can see, the first two are a little bit cooler. These are a little bit warmer, but not super warm. And they're all just really subtle, beautiful shades. And as with Honeymoon, I also feel like you can use each of these alone. If you just want a liner, the brown is really pretty on its own. And if you want any of the others, they work as a great lid color by themselves. The other thing I would say is, if you want, I did kind of a more natural look, because I'm assuming that most people that buy this palette are buying it because they want a more natural look. But you can really take that darker brown and just do an amazing smoky brown look, especially working in some of that first micro glittery kind of shade. And it's super gorgeous, kind of Jennifer Lopez-ish. I always look at her as like the epitome of the brown smoky eye. So there it is. I really love it. I don't have any primers on, eyeshadow primers with this, and you can see it's still really pretty on. I don't feel like this palette you need to have eyeshadow primers, and the eyeshadows in it are lasting a good 8+ hours. They are creamy. The wet dry formula to me is a little bit creamier than the regular Tom Ford palettes, and especially this one, not especially this one, including this one is a better way of saying it. I think that those are definitely they're not powdery. They're rich, creamy, they apply beautifully, they're very pigmented. Any of the swatches I did, except for that dark brown, were just one swipe of the finger, and they wear incredibly well. So I'm happy with these. I mean, yes, they're pricey, but I don't know. I'm at the point now where I'm gonna wanna buy fewer makeup items, but just really love the ones that I have. So anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts, suggestions, comments on the other ones, because I have not seen the other palettes. I haven't seen them in a store yet. And subscribe on YouTube. Thanks.